though my apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, and he's trying to kill me. He started appearing in dreams, but I think he's crossed over into the real world now. The first time I saw him, I was experiencing sleep paralysis, and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. He had a huge misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. For a while, he just stared at me, but then he got out of the chair and started shambling toward the bed. I couldn't move because I was paralyzed. I have sleep paralysis fairly often. It sucks. Right before he reached my bed, I woke up screaming. I had another dream a few nights later, where I was in a library, and a girl came up to me and said, "You've seen Dear David, haven't you?" I was like, "Who?" And she said, "Dear David, you saw him." She continued, "He's dead. He only appears at midnight, and you can ask him 2 questions if you said Dear David first." Then she added, "But never try to ask him a 3rd question, or he'll kill you." I was very shaken. Having 2 dreams about the same thing is pretty weird. Anyway, a couple weeks passed without incident. Then David came back in another dream. Same situation. I was in bed, and he was sitting in the rocking chair near the window, staring at me. In the dream, I say, "Dear David, how did you die?" He mumbles, "An accident in a store." I say, "Dear David, what happened in the store?" He groans, "A shelf was pushed on my head." I'm frozen with fear. I ask, "Who pushed the shelf?" David doesn't answer. I realize that I've asked a 3rd question, which I'm not supposed to do. At that point, I wake up, absolutely terrified. The next couple days, I Google deaths in the city, but can't find anything about a kid named David dying in a store. I even try different names. Daniel, Dylan, Devin. Nothing. A few weeks go by without incident. Sort of randomly, the apartment above mine is vacated, and I have the opportunity to move into it. It's a larger apartment, so I'm thrilled. Another month or 2 goes by, and I sort of forget about Dear David. I think he lost track of me because I moved upstairs. But lately, something strange is happening. For the past 4 nights, my cats gather at the front door at exactly midnight and just stare at it, almost like something is on the other side. Last night, I got a weird feeling and looked out the peephole, and I'm dead certain I saw movement on the other side. When I opened the door and turned on the hall light, nothing was there, but my cats seemed unnerved, bushy tails, etc. And that's where I am right now. Dear David found me, I think. I don't know what to do. I'll keep you updated. Update. For the 6th night in a row, my cat has walked over to the door promptly at midnight and stared at it. What is going on? Okay, so I took a photo through the peephole because I'm too scared to open the door. I feel like I saw something. I couldn't tell, so I mustered the courage to open the door. Nothing was out there, but I took another photo. Look at this. Is it just me, or is there something in the first photo, right where the banister meets the shelves, hiding on the stairs? I wasn't sure if it was a smudge or something, so I took a second photo from inside. There was something out there. I deadbolted the lock and got in bed because I don't know what else to do. I can still hear my cat meowing at the door. I am pretty scared. It's been pretty quiet tonight. I'm gonna try out a sleep talk app to see if anything happens during the night. I'm heading to bed, but the cats are back at the door. They only do this in the middle of the night. It's routine now. And here we go, just minutes before midnight. Maxwell is extra talkative tonight. He's obviously trying to tell me something. They're both there now. I don't even know if this is the right kind of salt. I used a sound app to record my apartment last night. It makes individual recordings each time it hears something. There were 33 recordings. Most of them are pretty vague. A couple of them are passing cars and the like, but there are 3 that I'm interested in. The first is a snapping sound and what seems like a single step. It's odd because I didn't get out of bed all night. This one is weird because out of 33 recordings, this is the only one that has that strange electric sound throughout. This directly follows the electric static. Another snap, then I groan in my sleep. These happened between 2 to 3 a.m. I have no explanation for them. I'll keep recording and share if I find anything curious. Getting the F out of my haunted apartment for the weekend. Hold on. Did you see that? Well, psychokinetic editing did. Eyes, nose, and mouth. Misshapen head. Small stature. Please tell me it's just a painting. I have no explanation for this. So, a weird thing just happened. Take it with a grain of salt. I bought a Polaroid camera this weekend because they're fun and dorky. I decided to take a few photos around my apartment. Polaroids are stupid and fun, and inherently sorta creepy. I didn't expect to find anything, and for the most part, I didn't. I took a couple of my living room and bedroom. That's the rocking chair I first saw David in. They're pretty unremarkable. Then I went into the hallway and snapped a photo. The Polaroid developed completely black. I even ripped open and destroyed a fresh pack to see if it was just an undeveloped Polaroid, but they start out white. I also thought, maybe I accidentally covered the lens with my finger, so I took a photo while intentionally covering it. The photo on the left is me covering the lens with my finger. The one on the right is my fully lit hallway, taken just after midnight. So this could be nothing. I'm not sure what to make of it. Okay, one last thing because I wanted to double check. Here's a couple of video of me taking photos.
Okay, here's my living room. And I'll leave that there.
And then the hallway.
Okay, now I'm gonna take a photo of the hallway just to show you what that's like. And as you can see, the first one has already developed. So let's see what this one does. It's gonna take a minute. But it is developing black. So I don't know.
It came out totally black again, for a second time. Honestly, I don't know why I'm still fucking around with this camera. There might be a logical explanation. Someone told me to take photos from farther away, so I tried that. Once with my iPhone, and once with the Polaroid. Left is with my phone, right is with the Polaroid. The whole light was on both times. Why is it pitch black each time with the Polaroid? This whole thread has been really convoluted, and I'm sorry if it's hard to follow. I just thought this was all weird and wanted to share. Folks have been urging me to get some sage, so I did. Saging the hall, and definitely saging the hell out of this rocking chair. Honestly, sage doesn't seem like it'll help much, but I'm open to anything. I barely slept last night. I kept waking up feeling like something was wrong. But who knows, maybe this will do something. Sage did not work. I haven't dreamt about David in a few months, but he appeared again last night. In the dream, my bedroom was filled with hazy smoke, but I could see David sitting in the chair across the room. He was smaller this time, almost shrunken. He didn't do or say anything except look at me. Anyway, it feels like a bad omen. It's been 2 weeks, and he still does this every night at midnight. Other weird stuff has been happening too. I've been recording myself sleeping, and it picks up this weird static electricity sound every night at 3 a.m. It lasts about 5 minutes. This morning I woke up to the whole house shaking. It felt like a small earthquake. I debated even mentioning that on Twitter because it sounds made up, but I distinctly felt the house swaying. It's just a whole bunch of small things happening at once. I feel so uneasy, like right before a thunderstorm comes. Everyone is telling me to move, but I don't have any guarantee that this won't follow me. They just issued a thunderstorm warning for tonight. Everyone in the city is talking about how weird the sky looks. I can hear rolling thunder in the distance. All this ghost stuff has been spooky, but this past weekend was the first time I actually felt unsafe in my home. On Friday night, there was supposed to be a huge storm. In the end, it passed, but that night was bizarre anyway. I fell asleep pretty early. I was incredibly tired for some reason. I had a dream that night where David was dragging me by the arm through an old abandoned warehouse. I'm not sure why I didn't fight back in the dream, or how he was strong enough to pull me, but that's dream logic for you. It was a creepy dream, but I didn't think much of it when I woke up. I took a shower, and then I noticed something. I'd woken up with a huge bruise on my arm. Now look, maybe I injured myself the day before, and my arm was hurting during the night, which manifested as a dream. There could be a totally logical explanation for it, so I brushed it off. I went to get a coffee, which I do every weekend. When I walk to the coffee place, I always pass a food cart repair depot. It's always incredibly busy, especially on weekends. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 4 years, and the place has always been jam-packed with carts getting serviced. But today, it was completely abandoned. The whole warehouse was totally gutted and empty. Well, almost empty. I went inside to look around because I was astonished that this place was suddenly empty after all these years. Basically, the only thing in the entire warehouse was a single green chair. If you recall, David first appeared in my green rocking chair. It could be nothing, but it's weird that it was the only thing left behind. On my way back from coffee, the warehouse had been shuttered. It's remained shuttered since. The chair, my brews, dreaming about an empty warehouse and then passing by one? It gives me the creeps. Needless to say, I didn't sleep much that night. Too many strange things are happening, and more frequently. So, I don't know. Anyway, it was a strange weekend. There have been a few small developments in my apartment, but I'm not really sure what to make of them. I just know I'm scared. If you recall, my cats usually gather at the door at midnight, but lately it's been getting earlier and earlier every night. I was almost used to routine, so when they started to cry at the door closer to 10 p.m., I was confused. They began a new routine: hover around the door at 10 p.m., cry for about 15 minutes, then wander off as if nothing's wrong. But this week, something else has been happening. Shortly after the usual cat stuff, around 10:30 or so, I start getting phone calls from an unmarked number. My entire call history for the past week looks like this. You'll notice that I answered once, yesterday. Since this has been happening for days on end, I thought it might be an automated telemarketer or something. Usually if it's an automated thing, if you answer once, they quit calling, so I picked up. I didn't say anything, I just listened, waiting for some automated message to chime in. Instead, what I heard on the other end was a peculiar electrical static sound, very similar to the static my sleep app picks up at night. After about a minute, the static stopped, and there was silence. I kept listening. I heard what I thought was breathing, but it was so faint I can't be sure. My heart was racing, so it was hard to hear. Then, just as I was about to hang up, I heard a very small voice whisper, "Hello." Something about the way they said hello freaked me out. It wasn't a question or a greeting. Just hello. A flat statement. So quiet I could barely hear it. I panicked and hung up. I didn't know what else to do. I closed all the curtains in my apartment and turned on every single light. I watched TV until dawn because I was too scared to go to sleep. I sort of feel like I'm losing my mind. If I look at each individual incident on its own, there are perfectly logical explanations for everything. But after 3 weeks of weird shit happening, I don't know how to make sense of it all. The only thing I feel like I could do right now is write everything down. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'll keep doing. So, I moved the green chair out of the bedroom weeks ago. It's been in various parts of the living room ever since. I should probably get rid of it, but I'm not sure that would have any effect. Also, I'm going on vacation to Japan in 3 weeks, and I keep thinking if I can make it to my trip, this will all end. As dumb as that sounds. David lost track of me once I moved, so maybe if he believes I've left the apartment again, he'll leave me alone. Anyway, last week I bought a pet monitoring camera so I can keep an eye on the cats while I'm overseas. It's basically a nanny cam that connects to the Wi-Fi, so you can check in whenever you want. It runs 24/7. It also alerts you to sound and movement via an app. I blacked out the company, since I doubt they want to be associated with ghosts. In any event, I decided to test it out this weekend. I was away from home one night, so I set up the camera before I left. My phone pinged periodically through the evening, alerting me to the cats running around and playing. Normal stuff. Then, around 11, it alerted me again that it detected motion, but when I checked the feed of my apartment, I didn't see anything. So I watched the feed again. Still nothing. I watched it a third time, and finally noticed something. Watch the chair. I knew it couldn't be the wind, because I haven't had the windows open at all this summer. I have AC and like to keep it chilly. It was unnerving, but there wasn't anything I could do about it right then, so I flipped my phone off and tried not to panic. About half an hour later, I got another motion alert. If you missed it the first time, like me, look above the shelf. It's a little turtle shell that I hung on the wall. Yes, I know it's weird to own a turtle shell, but my family lives in Montana and I picked it up last year at a native trading post. Since I've been back home, I've been too nervous to turn the camera back on, and today has been pretty quiet. That said, I feel really uneasy. I put the chair in the hole. I hope nothing else happens tonight. It's happening again. I've been leaving the nanny cam on 24/7. It records every time there's movement or sound, as you know. I was going over the feed from this weekend and noticed some weird stuff. During the night on Saturday, while I slept, it recorded the cats in the living room. It seemed pretty unremarkable at first. But then, after a few moments, Maxwell freaks out and jumps over something invisible. I don't think it was a bug or anything. Maxwell doesn't react like that with bugs. He just eats them. Something spooked him. What's more, I almost never get bugs. I've seen maybe 3 in all the years I've lived here. Anyway, the next night, the camera recorded a couple more strange videos. Specifically, it recorded Maxwell doing this on and off for hours. He'd sit up on his hind legs and peer around the room, as if looking for something, or looking at something. This is odd behavior for him, and I can't come up with an explanation for it, especially because of the next video. Here's the final video the camera recorded that night. I suppose there's a chance it was a fly, but I honestly never get flies, so that seems unlikely. I just can't shake the feeling that something has made its way into the apartment. It's odd behavior from Maxwell, in any event. Things feel off this week. I can't explain it. I've been having so many nightmares lately. They're way more intense than my usual dreams too. I don't know if it's because I'm stressed or if it's something else. This afternoon I took a nap and had a dream I haven't been able to shake. In the dream, I was laying in bed and rolled over to face the other direction. On the pillow next to me was a severed head with a bloody spine attached, snaking down the bed. The head was staring right at me, somehow still alive. It had this huge smile plastered on its face. Horrified, I screamed, "What happened to you?" The head smiled even bigger. "It feels great," the head groaned. After that, I woke up. It was dark outside by then. Everything was quiet. Other dreams have been just as strange. Things like dark figures staring in my windows, even though I live on the second floor. Stuff that makes no sense in relation to what I've been experiencing in life. After that dream about the head, I've been feeling uneasy all night. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to go for a walk, if for no other reason than to get out of my apartment. I went to a bodega a few blocks away to get a snack. On the way, I had to pass the warehouse that was boarded up a few weeks ago. It's actually on the way to everything. I pass it twice a day just to get to the subway. I hurried past it, since it freaks me out now. At the bodega, I got some Doritos and a seltzer, then made my way back home. When I passed the warehouse a second time, I heard a dull thunk from the other side of the shutters. I froze in place, but there was no other sound after that. I probably should have just continued on, but curiosity got the better of me. There was a grated window next to the doors, about a foot above my head, too high to see into. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to hold my phone up to the window, take one photo, and then run for my life. I made sure my flash was on, positioned my camera lens through one of the grates, and snapped a photo. I almost thought I saw movement when the flash went off, but I couldn't be certain. The light bounced off of the grates and was pretty blinding. I couldn't even look at the photo. I just ran all the way home. I was too jumpy to look at it for a while. I just ate my Doritos nervously. When I finally did look at the photo, here's what I saw. It seemed to be a different part of the warehouse, maybe an office. There was a bunch of old insulation and what looked like a filing cabinet and a ripped up leather desk chair. Then I noticed something else, in the upper right corner. Something that looked like a face. The more I stared at it, the more it started to look like a nondescript blur. Now I can't even be sure what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm too deep into this and my brain wants to see David when he's not there. But here, I messed with the filters on my phone a bit. Tell me this doesn't look like him. The past few days have been fairly quiet. I haven't been spending much time at home. I leave for Japan in a couple hours. I've been trying to avoid anything weird before my trip. I still feel like this all might stop if I just leave for a couple of weeks. Whatever happens, I want to thank everyone for their kind thoughts and concerns. This whole ordeal has been stressful, and it means a lot. It makes me feel like I'm not going through this alone. See you in a couple weeks. I bought a votive tablet at the shrine I'm at in Japan. It's my last full day in Japan. The past couple weeks have been pretty peaceful. I have people taking care of the cats, and they said they've been doing fine. This morning I went for a long walk around Sapporo. I've never really planned my vacations. I like to wander a lot and see what I find. I came across this statue in a park. I couldn't find out any real information about it online, but it was weird and pretty. I was taking pictures of it from different angles, since it's cylindrical. I moved around to one side and almost dropped my phone at what I saw. It felt too similar to be a coincidence. I felt dizzy staring up at it. This kid with a dented head. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is nothing. It doesn't feel like nothing. Anyway, I have to pack for my flight home in the morning. It'll be good to see the cats again, at least. I made it home safely. The cats are fine, if a little more talkative than usual. Weird things have been happening with the electricity in my apartment this week. First, 2 bulbs have burned out in the hallway in less than a week. At this point, I've just left it alone, rather than get a ladder again. But the strangest thing has to do with the backlight on my TV. It's an LED strip that plugs into the TV itself via USB. The TV has to be on in order for the backlight to be on. But last night, the backlight was flickering on and off by itself. I noticed it just some time before dawn, when I woke up and went into the kitchen to get some water. I'd barely gotten back into bed again when I saw a faint light come on in the living room. After a few seconds, it went dark again. I went back into the living room and stood there watching the backlight go on and off, for at least a few minutes. It was bizarre. Eventually, it stopped, and now the backlight doesn't work at all. It's only a couple months old, so it shouldn't be dead already. Anyway, I couldn't get back to sleep, so I went to the diner near my apartment. It was the only thing open at 4 a.m. I had eggs over easy with ham. It was too much ham, but the eggs were pretty good. When I got back home, the sun was starting to come up, so I figured I might as well shower and go into work early. I showered and brushed my teeth, then headed into the bedroom to get dressed. As I passed the front door, I thought I heard a faint scratching sound from the other side. It was so soft I wasn't sure it had really happened. I went over to the door, but I was too scared to look through the peephole. I couldn't bring myself to actually put my face that close to the sound, so I opted to take a photo through the peephole instead. Since there's a skylight just outside my door, the hall was awash in a faint yellow-green light. I snapped a couple photos. At first, the pictures didn't seem like anything, just blurry nothingness. But as I analyzed it and started noticing things, part of a face, an ear, and an eye staring right back at me. I think maybe it's time to get someone else involved. It's obvious this isn't going to stop until I do something. I'm just not sure what that is yet. I'll let you all know when I figure it out. For those who couldn't make it out, I see it, but the features don't quite seem human. To me, it looks a lot like the kid in the statue you saw, from a higher angle. Sorry for the radio silence the past couple weeks. First, I had a friend come over to do some cleansing stuff. She did the whole apartment and the hallway. A lot of self-proclaimed professional mediums have reached out, plus about a dozen ghost hunter TV shows. I've declined them all because I don't really want strangers in my house sensationalizing what's going on. So instead, I had a friend come over and cleanse the place. And for about a week or so, it seemed like it worked. Things appeared to go back to normal. The cats weren't gathering at the door anymore. I stopped having dreams. It was starting to seem like it was over. Then, one morning, last week, I was walking to work and passed the shuttered warehouse as usual. This time, all the metal doors were wide open, sunlight pouring in. The warehouse was still mostly empty, except for one thing. There was a hearse parked near the back wall. The warehouse has been closed for over 2 months. I have no idea why it was open that day. Nobody was around. It was weird, but I tried not to think about it. It's not all that strange to see a hearse, I guess. Like, they have to park somewhere. I tried to put it out of my mind. And then the next several days were uneventful. But something else happened last night. It was around 11 or so, and I was watching TV on the couch. I went into the dining room to get a drink from the fridge, and noticed both the cats sitting by the far window, staring up at it. The window looks out into the roof of the business next door. I glanced out the window, but didn't see anything. I figured that maybe there was a mouse in the wall or something. I shrugged and grabbed a beer from the fridge. As I went into the kitchen to get the bottle opener, I noticed something. There's a window in the kitchen, which looks onto the same roof, and someone was standing on the roof, staring at me. I immediately ducked down. I reached up and flicked off the light switch. I peered over the windowsill, but couldn't see much. My phone was in my pocket, so I grabbed it and took a photo. It was blurry and dark, but I swear someone was out there. I tried to take a better photo, but the figure had disappeared. I closed all the blinds and made sure the door was locked, and then drank like 5 more beers until I was too drunk to be scared. But now I feel like I'm back at square one. I'm sure it was him. He's not going away. I don't know what to do. It's been about 4 months since the first time I dreamed of David. In the dream, I saw him in a chair again. I don't have the green chair in my room anymore. This time it was a recliner I've had for years. He was staring right at me, just like the first time. Again, I felt paralyzed and could barely move. But this time, something was different. I still felt mostly immobile, but I could squirm just a little bit. I felt more alert. I could move my hands somewhat. David glared at me, and I dreaded what I knew was coming. He was going to get out of the chair and come toward me, like before. I had to do something. I keep my phone next to me on the bed, and I somehow managed to get a hold of it. I thought, if David is going to kill me, maybe I could at least get evidence on my phone. I started snapping pictures in the dark. Sure enough, he crawled down off the chair and began shuffling toward me. He moved slowly, like it was a struggle for him. felt terrified, but I kept taking photos. David limped closer toward me, never taking his eyes off me. Soon, I was face to face with him. He started muttering something, too quiet for me to understand. I watched as his eyes rolled back in his head until they were all white. I tried to writhe away from him, but I could barely move. I stared in horror as he began crawling up onto my bed, still murmuring something. And that's when I woke up. Same as before, broad daylight, no trace of David anywhere. It's almost routine now, but it was a dream after all, so I got up and went to work, and after a while the stress of the dream melted away. I wasn't even going to write about this, since it wouldn't really be new information, but tonight, I noticed something that petrified me. I went into my phone to find a picture from a couple days ago, and saw dozens of pitch black photos in my camera roll, all from last night. It's better to just show you. Turn up your brightness because they're pretty dark. This is the one that made my heart drop. Usually I can come up with some excuse for what's happening, but I have no logical explanation for this. So now I'm sitting here on my couch, freaking out. I certainly won't be able to sleep. I just felt like I needed to get this out. For everyone asking, yes, I'm alive. I've been on the quiet side because there's something I'm trying to investigate, and I'm not sure how to yet. I'd rather not tweet unless I have something substantial to share. It's also sort of hard to explain the logistics of what I'm trying to find out, but I'll do my best. Basically, there's a part of my apartment I'm just now learning about. At least that's what I think. To refresh your memory, I live in a duplex. I used to live on the first floor, but now I live on the second floor. It's a long, boxy building that looks like this. The other week, I was tweeting the most recent update from the living room couch. About 30 seconds after I'd sent the last tweet, I heard a thump directly above my head, as if someone above me had dropped something on the floor, which is impossible, since I'm in the top apartment. There's also no way to access the roof. There aren't any ladders on the outside of the building. The only way you get on the roof is through a skylight in the hallway. There are no trees in the immediate vicinity either. It definitely wasn't pipes either. It was distinctly the sound of something falling to the floor. My building is old and makes lots of noises, but this was a new sound and it startled me. So I'm thinking, is there some secret crawl space in my home? I look all over my apartment, but I can't figure it out. So I go into the hallway, and that's when something dawns on me. There's no real way to ease into this, so I'll just say it. There's a mysterious hatch in my hallway. I've always known about it, but I just assumed it opened directly to the roof. It's really high above the stairs, so I always figured it was impossible to access without some sort of fancy professional ladder. I took this video so you can see how high it is. I see that hatch every morning when I leave for work and think nothing of it. But this time something dawned on me. It can't lead to the roof, because it's actually below the roof. I'm about to spring some simple math on you, so I apologize in advance. First, the skylight is flat, with the roof. I checked Google Earth to make sure. The hatch is about 3 feet below the skylight, meaning there's about 3 feet of empty space between the two openings. I think maybe the hatch leads to a short ladder going to the roof. But even if that's the case, the hatch is level with all the ceilings in my apartment. That means there's 3 feet of empty space all over my apartment. I was ready to explain this away for a few reasons. One, it might just be some sort of insulated space that all residential buildings have. I'm not an architect, so what do I know? It didn't seem relevant enough at the time, so I decided I wasn't going to mention it here. But over the past week and a half, I've been hearing more things above me. A few days after the first sound, I heard a similar thump while I was in the kitchen. Then last night I heard something small clink to the floor and roll about 6 feet before stopping. Something is going on up there. Maybe it's a raccoon, but maybe it's not. I also can't get over the fact that the hatch is in such a weird, inaccessible place over the stairs. I need to investigate. I'm just not sure how right now. I guess I'll try to buy a long pole off Amazon to see if the hatch even moves. I might have to buy a construction ladder. At any rate, that's why I've been MIA for a minute. I'll keep you posted when I figure out how to get up there. Okay, I bought a pole. If the hatch is movable, I'll either shell out for a ladder or call my landlord to investigate. A lot has happened in the last week, but I was away for Thanksgiving, so I'm just now able to write it all down. The noises from the ceiling haven't let up, but the pole I ordered didn't arrive before I had to leave for the holiday, so I didn't actually get it until late Friday night. I planned to investigate the next morning and went to bed. I'd barely fallen asleep when I woke up to an incredibly loud crash above me. It sounded like someone had dropped a bowling ball. I bolted upright in bed and immediately felt strange. There was a weird energy all around me. I can't explain it. After about a minute, I heard another crash. I briefly thought about grabbing my shoes and booking it, but that would mean passing under the hatch, and that seemed like a bad idea. So instead I just listened and waited, though I'm not sure for what. The crash happened again, and then again, probably 15 times in a row, followed by a long silence. Then I heard a smaller, creaky sound from the hallway. In my mind I registered it as a footstep, but it really could have been anything. I stayed still, but there were no more sounds after that. I lay back down, still tense and nervous, but I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up the next morning and everything seemed normal again. I got dressed and left to go get a bagel, same as every Saturday. As I made my way down the stairs, something crunched under my feet. I looked down and noticed a pile of debris on the stairs, directly under the hatch. It looked like dirt, but I couldn't tell for certain. It could have been old plaster or something. I glanced up at the hatch and noticed something else peculiar. The edge of something was caught in it, barely poking out. It's hard to see because it's so far up, but I took a photo. At that point, bagels were the last thing on my mind. I went back upstairs and grabbed the pole. I set my camera on the coat wardrobe at the top of the stairs and hit record, just to make sure it would be caught on video if a demon burst out of the hatch. Here's the video. I jumped out of the way and practically fell down the stairs trying to dodge whatever it was that fell. At first I thought it was a dead squirrel, which would honestly explain a lot. It hit the steps and bounced down to the first floor. I went upstairs to get my phone and collapse the pole, since it's so long and unwieldy, then went back downstairs to investigate the object that fell. At first I wasn't even sure what it was. It was a dingy, faded black. I picked it up and realized what it was. It was a small leather shoe. I hustled back upstairs and texted my landlord. I told him I thought there was something in the crawl space and asked if he could investigate. He said he'd come by later with a ladder and check it out. A few hours later, my landlord was on a ladder, shining a flashlight into the crawl space. I stared up at him, half expecting something to grab him and yank him into the darkness. He angled his flashlight all around and finally saying, "There's nothing up here." But then he was like, "Oh, wait." I watched as he reached up into the emptiness with his free arm, and when he pulled it back, he had something small and round in his hand. He climbed down the ladder and handed it to me. Again, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. It was smooth and shiny, and at first I thought it was an old piece of candy, but it was cold and too heavy to be candy. After a second, I realized it was a marble. It was so worn that it hadn't registered as a marble at first. Its shape was also sort of weird with a little bump on one end. My landlord seemed unbothered for the most part. Okay, dude. And he told me to call him if I heard anything else. I went inside and headed to my office to see if I could figure anything out about this marble that somehow made its way into my ceiling. I had nothing to go on, and in short, I didn't really learn much. But I did figure out the bump on the marble, I think. Apparently in the early 1900s, they made marbles by hand and cut them with big metal scissors, which would mean the marble is probably really old? Anyway, now I have a decrepit old shoe and a marble sitting on my dresser. I guess this is the new normal. Sorry for the long break. I haven't been feeling great the past couple weeks and haven't had time to update. There also wasn't much to say for the most part. I wasn't sleeping well and I was having weird dreams, but they were vague and hard to describe. I'm sleepy all day long and I've been getting sudden bouts of dizziness. I chalked it up to always having earbuds crammed in, and made a mental note to get my ears checked. Other than that, things were pretty quiet. I sort of fooled myself into thinking that finding those items in the attic somehow ended all this. Not that that would make much sense. But last week, something started to happen. Late on Wednesday, I woke up with a start and felt something strange, like something had just been watching me. I turned on the light, but I was alone. Still, there was this tangible feeling of badness. Everything felt wrong, sort of like when you have the flu and you wake up at night and can't really tell where you are for a minute. It was a feeling I'm used to. It always accompanies David. People tweet at me a lot saying he might just need help, but I'm certain that's not the case. Every time he shows up, I feel a palpable sense of malice. That's what I felt that night. Malice. Dread. But still, I was alone. And I was so tired. I wound up just going back to sleep. I've been so exhausted recently I can barely function. The next night, the same thing happened. I woke up suddenly, feeling like I'd just missed seeing something. Like a candle had just gone out and I could still smell it. I thought about using the pet cam from the living room to monitor my bedroom while I slept, but the cord was too short to get the camera high enough to see the entire room. So I improvised. I downloaded an app that takes a photo every 60 seconds and set my phone on top of a bookcase. It's almost 7 feet tall, so it had a pretty good view of my bed and the surrounding room. Then I went to sleep. Just like before, I jolted awake hours later, feeling the same unease. I turned on the light and hurried out of bed to get my phone from the bookcase. There were probably 350 photos to scroll through. The vast majority of them were me sleeping in an empty room. It's sort of dark, but you can see me sleeping. I'd left a couple nightlights on just in case anything showed up, but for the first 100 or so photos, it was just me in an empty room. Then, suddenly, he was there, standing on the chair at the foot of the bed, staring at me. In the next photo, from a minute later, he seems to be staring straight up at the ceiling, just staring. Then he appears to collapse on the chair. The next dozen photos are all the same. He's completely lifeless. At first, I thought he was dead, which obviously doesn't make any sense. I looked over at the chair, half expecting him to still be there, but it was empty. But then, in the next photo, he's gone. The room is totally empty again. He's gone in the next several photos too. I figured maybe that was it, but I kept swiping through the photos. About 15 photos later, he was back, standing next to the bed. It was just like the last time I saw him. That's when my heart started to race. I didn't want to look at the rest of the photos, but I knew I had to. I swiped to the next photo and my heart sank into my stomach. He was on the bed, inches from me, staring down at me, sleeping. The next one was worse. In the next photo, he's staring right at the camera. After that, there's seemingly nothing. He disappears again, and the rest of the scroll is just me alone in my room again. That is, until the last photo. Here's the final photo on the scroll. I'm at a loss for words. That malformed ear, that stringy hair. I didn't even know what to think. I looked all over my room but couldn't find anything. And honestly, I've been so exhausted I didn't know how to process it. Even now, all I want to do is just go to sleep. Hey everyone, I'll be gone for the next week, visiting family back home in Montana for the holidays. It'll be nice to get away from all this for a bit. Thanks for everyone's kind words lately. I'll see you when I get back. So, I've been away from the city for a couple of weeks. I went home to Montana for the holidays and almost immediately I started to feel better. Less tired, less foggy. Up until now, I haven't really entertained the thought of moving, thinking that David would probably just follow me wherever I go. But when I left for Montana, everything seemed to improve. Like, maybe David wouldn't follow me after all. Maybe he was tied to the house, not me. Being home felt safer, and I managed to relax a little bit. I even started browsing listings for new apartments back in New York. The last thing I want to do is move in the middle of winter, but after the past few months, it seemed like it might be worth it. It felt like there might be a way out. But after a few days, I started to feel strange again. One night I got up to go to the bathroom, and as I stood there in the dark, I couldn't help feeling like there was something moving outside the bathroom window. The bathroom looks out into the backyard, and it was pitch black. I could barely see anything, but it's Montana, and there are animals passing through all the time. Sure enough, in the morning, I found animal tracks through the snow. I don't know the specific animal, deer, elk. The next night, the same thing happened. I got up in the middle of the night and thought I saw movement in the blackness outside. This time I stood at the window and gazed out, straining my eyes to see, waiting for them to adjust to the night. For a long time I stared out into the snowy darkness, but couldn't see any movement. Then, just as I was about to turn away, I saw something lurch off to the right and disappear from view. Again, it was too dark to make out the animal, but it could have been anything. Maybe a coyote or something? In the morning, as I was getting out of the shower, I glanced out the window and noticed tracks behind the garage. I couldn't tell what they were from the bathroom, so I got dressed, put on my coat, and went outside. When I got up close, my heart practically stopped. They weren't tracks, they were footprints. Really small footprints. I followed them across the backyard, but they disappeared into the ditch out back. I stood there in the snow, not knowing what to do. What could I do? Call the cops and tell them I found footprints in the snow? The last couple nights I was too scared to leave my room. If it had been David out there in the snow, it meant that he could follow me anywhere. No matter where I moved, he could find me. I felt helpless. I flew back to New York the day after Christmas. Back in my apartment, it seemed like I was at square one yet again. I've tried everything I could think of. I've saged my apartment, I've hired a medium, nothing has worked. And worse, I still feel him at night, watching me from different corners of my room. Always getting closer, and waking up right before something happens. For the past few nights, I've been using that app that takes photos every couple minutes, but nothing has shown up. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to work anymore, but I've left it running just in case. It's picked up absolutely nothing. Save for one thing, from last night. Last night was particularly bad. I felt sick and had nightmares all night. I dreamed that David was hovering in the corner by the ceiling, far off the ground. He was mouthing something, but I couldn't hear any words. Then he was hovering above my bed, staring down at me, his mouth moving faster than it should be. I couldn't move. I could only look up at him. Suddenly, he plummeted downward, and I felt this huge pressure crash into my chest. I woke up gasping, the wind completely knocked out of me. I sat up and looked around frantically, heaving for air. But there was nothing. When I caught my breath, I retrieved my phone from the dresser. The photo roll showed nothing of note, save for the last photo, taken just a moment before. I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss here. I just don't know. Sorry for the long delay. Honestly, I wasn't sure I was going to tweet again. After what happened a couple weeks ago, everything stopped. Well, sort of. I wasn't having dreams anymore, and I was feeling better. I was sleeping through the night again. Actually, I was feeling great. I still do. But things have been sort of weird too. It's hard to explain. I'll try. But I don't know if any of it makes sense. Basically, as good as things have been for the past couple weeks, I can't shake the feeling that something is off. Like, I've been sleeping fine and I have lots of energy during the day, but sometimes I seem to sort of lose time, I guess. Like, I'll look up at the clock and realize a whole hour has gone by and I don't remember any of it. Or I'll mishear someone and ask them to repeat what they said, but they'll say they didn't say anything. Little stuff like that. But after what I've been through, that's not a big deal. Despite all that, I felt ready to put it all behind me. So on Sunday, I opened Twitter, intending to update you all that it was over. Or at least I thought so. I just want things to go back to the way they were. And it seemed like they had. I was writing something to that effect when I noticed I had way more notifications than usual. I swiped to my mentions and saw that everyone was tweeting to me about something I'd posted to my Instagram story the day before, saying they saw something weird. The stories are expired now, but I have screenshots. And I don't know how to explain it. Long story short, I went to brunch on Saturday with a friend. I posted a few photos to my story, and they were fairly unremarkable. Here's the first two I posted. Totally dumb and normal. They're totally boring brunch photos. I posted one more photo of me and my friend before leaving, and that was that. But the next day, I had a zillion messages about the third photo I posted. People had taken screenshots and sent them to me. This is what somehow got uploaded to my Instagram story. I have no clue what happened. It looked perfectly fine on my phone when I uploaded it. I'd say it was just a glitch, but I can't make sense of what's happening with my face. Maybe I can. I know what it looks like, what it probably is, but I don't know if I care anymore. I really just want things to be normal again, and things feel normal enough right now. I don't know. I guess I'll keep you updated if something else happens. Everything is fine. Please don't worry about me. I'm okay, and everything will be like it was before. For everyone asking if I'm alive, I'm doing okay. It's been pretty quiet around here lately, and I've been trying to focus on work. Of course, I'll keep you updated if anything strange happens, but for now I'm staying busy with drawing and other projects. And that's kind of it. That's where our story of Dear David seems to kind of end? ? It's strange, right? So I really enjoyed this story personally. I thought there was a lot of fun and creativity to it. It's one of the first Twitter horror stories I really got to read. You know, this was back in 2017, and it was hot, it was fresh, it was a crazy idea because you know it's not really a very common thing you would see even still these days, and it just kind of stops, right? And in his defense, he always says that it's a very real thing. You know, he swears up and down that it's, you know, this happened to him. And although I'm not trying to argue that fact, my personal belief is, you know, take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, you know, like there's like a haunted doll thing that you never really see besides in his picture. I don't know. There's certain little things about it that just kind of get me, you know, get my goat. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool things about it. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of intrigue and entertaining values about it, you know. I thought it was very creative, especially, you know, like I said, this was one of the first ones ever when it comes to a Twitter horror thread. Some Dear David news. Dan Lin, producer of It, will be producing a Dear David film with screenwriter Mike Van Ways, writer of The Conjuring, spin-off The Crooked Man, attached. So you could tell that there was a level of popularity to it that, you know, I mean, it became big enough that it ended up getting its own film. And, you know, like, I remember hearing that there was going to be a film, and it's like, oh, wow, that's so cool, you know, a film about this crazy story and everything, and, you know, then you never really hear anything about it again, which I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Only when I started researching back at a Dear David and preparing this video, and then doing any scouring of his Twitter page I could, I did find a little something. I found out that they did make the film, and that the film released back in 2023. I know. 2023. I was like, oh my god, how have I never heard about it? How has it, not been talked about in theaters and stuff like that? Where are the trailers? And then Adam here shows us probably why. Metacritic named Dear David the 6th worst movie of the year, which is a shame. But apparently they changed quite a bit of the plot and everything. It didn't really work when it comes to big screen stuff. But not everything does. Not everything does, which is fair enough. Adam tends to keep himself busy these days writing his comics still, which is really cool. That was another thing I used to really enjoy back in the day. And even now he's still working on them. You can see a lot of them uploaded to Twitter. I think he's got a Blue Sky account now. That's like a whole new social platform. I don't really know. I'm not exactly up to date with everything myself. I'll pop those links down in the description below. But anyway, as always, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I've had a great little time with it. I hope you have too. We'll see you for whatever's next on the horizon. You take care.